Hey everyone, Joseph Damiens from Damiens Tax Law. I'm here joined by Casey Cade from Cade CPA firm. Our two firms have worked together a good bit on some ERC credits, and we wanted to maybe put out some information in a video to kind of teach some people about ERC credits, what they are, who's a good candidate and who might qualify. Casey's done hundreds of these. We've done some ourselves and has a lot of expertise in the area. And I just wanted him to join us and get a few questions from him. Casey, so what is ERC just in its basics?
It's called a credit, but in actuality, it's a refund to incentivize back during the COVID days where smaller businesses were struggling to keep people paid, even if the business was struggling. And it's basically a retroactive reward for doing so and paying your people. It goes as far as who qualifies and all that. There's two main slam dunk qualification parameters. One being, if you're a non-essential business, it's deemed by your local state government and you're closed, doors are closed, obviously you're going to have a dip in gross receipts. The other being that if you are open, but you had a dip in gross receipts, and depending on the year, 2020 versus 2021, how much the dip had to be, you could qualify for a quarter. If, let's say, second quarter of 2020, if you had 40% of the gross receipts you had for the second quarter of 2019, you're going to qualify.
So there's a gross receipts test, and it's not, you don't have to span the whole time, the whole period to qualify. It's kind of broken about years and quarters and things of that nature, right?
Yes, for the most part, quarters. There are a few outliers, but yeah, overall quarters.
So what is it? It's an adjustment of, past taxes paid, which, probably causes some more adjustments in the future on returns, and kind of what does the process kind of broadly look like?
So, you go through, okay, you qualify, and then you've got to go through and figure out which employees qualify for it, depending on if it's 2020 or 2021. In 2020, it was an annual limit of $5,000 per qualified employee. For 2021, they turned around and they made it $7,000 per qualified employee per quarter. So we have Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2021. So there's a possible up to $21,000 per employee for the 2021 year.
So what is the time frame on these things going right now?
Just depending on the size of it, as far as internally getting it turned around, we get the records in my office, we turn it around pretty quick. Now, as far as when it gets mailed to the IRS, which unfortunately, if you have an amended Form 941, which is what you have to file to claim this credit, we're seeing about 5 to 6 months turnaround. There are a few exceptions where I've had a couple of clients that never filed the 941 originally, so we were able to e-file it, and they got their refund within a month, but they were late filing. So,
yeah, that definitely would help some of our payroll cases of people that haven't filed in the past. I know there's some limitations on like family members, things like that, as far as counting them as employees. What's a good number of employees for somebody to kind of start looking at this pretty heavy?
Typically, we say 5. There's no minimum, but, typically we say 5 as far as if you're trying to turn around and get some capital reinvested.
Capital worth doing. It's a process to it. It's not an overnight thing.
Right.
So, yeah, we're 5. You and I have done some with hundreds of employees. So it's kind of all over the place in that regard. But, 5 employees, you're going to get a decent benefit back potentially.
Yes. And one caveat is you do have to go back and amend your income tax return, whether it be at the partnership or S Corp level, whatever level it may be, or even on your personal return. So there would be, let's just say it's a partnership, you're going to have to amend the partnership return to reduce the wages by the amount of the credit that was taken, respectively, in 2020 or 2021. And then you could get into an issue, you would get into an issue of how many partners are there that are going to have to go back and amend their return now. We had one case where it was a nice amount, but there's a bunch of partners that would have to go back and amend, and they just said no. And at the time, we still had 2021 available, and so we just did not do the 2020, even though they did qualify.
And basically, the two qualifications really kind of revolve around gross receipts or the nominal effect. Gross receipts being the decline, and the nominal effect is a little more nuanced, I guess. Just kind of what's your kind of quick and dirty summary of that?
Yeah, so there's companies out there that were deemed essential or could stay open even with the mandate, but there may have been a sector of the business that had to shut down due to the governmental mandate. And so, as you were saying, the nominal portion or effect is if that sector made up for a quarter in 2019, made up 10% or more of the business, and then it's shut down in 2020 or 2021, Then we've got what we call the partial suspension. And like you said, you can get really deep into the weeds. That's the most complicated part of the credit and digging through the facts and circumstances there.
Okay. And then kind of just to wrap it up, like what about businesses that were essential and didn't have to shut down? Can they still qualify?
Well, yeah, like I said, if you were a business that was essential, but you had a sector of the business that made up a nominal portion, 10% or more gross receipts or employee hours for the same quarter in 2019, when you're comparing the 2020 or 2021 quarter, then you could qualify under partial suspension.
Yeah, but like even like what about a lawyer? The courts were shut down for so long. I mean, that interferes with ability to operate. Is that potential grounds?
Yeah, if you can build up a strong case of facts and circumstances. Okay, here's a sector of my law practice that was doing well in 2019, and when these mandates kicked in, that sector had a disproportional adverse effect.
Well, good. Anything else you want to add before I close it out?
Like I said, it was for qualified employees, you could have up to $26,000 per employee coming back as a refund. And like I said, I could talk about this for 3 or 4 hours, but that's not the point of this video. So if there's other questions, obviously people can get in touch with either you or myself and be happy to dig into the weeds of it.
Yeah. And I thought of one just kind of before we close it out is, it originally came out and it was kind of offset against PPP funds and you couldn't double dip for a little while. Then that rule got changed, right?
Right.
And then it kind of opened it up to more people kind of, last year, kind of into last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, I mean, when the PPP and all that came out in March of 2020, myself having a bunch of small business clients, we jumped all over it. A lot of them needed it. And I ignored the employee retention credit because at the time, if you took the PPP, you could not do it. Well, they came out, I want to say late December of 2020 with the Consolidated Appropriations Act, went retroactive back and said, you can do both the PPP and the ERC as long as you don't commingle those funds. So if you had $1 million of wages and you got 300,000 of PPP, well, you've got another 700,000 that you could use for potential ERC purposes.
Okay, cool. Well, look, I appreciate it. We're just going to post this video. If anybody has any questions, they can reach out to us. We'll put your contact on the site as well. And we'll put a form on there for anybody interested in ERC. We'll make it easy for us to check it out for you. Appreciate it, Casey.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.